Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishwam Sabaraj Gaya Sto Desata Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Vishwam Sabaraj Gaya Sto Desata Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Sasidakur Prabhupada Ki Go Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 2, The Dynasties of the Sons of Manu. Text 3. Prasadrastu Manoputro. No? Text 1, all right. Sri Shukuvacha. Evam Kate Tatsudyumne. Manur Vaivasvata Sute Putra Kamas Tapastepe Yamunayam Shatam Sama Evam Gateta Sudyumne Manur Vaivasvata Sute Putra Kamas Tapastepe Yamunayam Shatam Sama Evam Gateta Sudyumne Manur Vaivasvata Sute Putra Kamas Tapastepe Yamunayam Shatam Sama. Vaishnavis. Shri Shukavacha. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Evam, thus, Gate had accepted the order of Vanaprastha. Ata, thereafter, Sudyumne, when Sudumna, Manu Vaivaswata, Vaivaswata Manu, known as Shraddhadeva. Sute, his son, Putrakama, desiring to get sons. Tapatepe, executed severe austerities. Yamunayam, on the bank of the Yamuna. Shatam Sama, for 100 years. Translation. Shukadeva Goswami said, thereafter, when his son Sudyumna had thus gone to the forest to accept the order of Vanaprastha, Vaivaswata Manu, Shraddhadeva, being desirous of getting more sons, performed severe austerities on the bank of the Yamuna for 100 years. Text 2. Then, because of this desire for sons, the Manu, known as Shraddhadeva, worshiped the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, the Lord of the demigods. Thus he got 10 sons exactly like himself. Among them all, Ikshvaku was the oldest. Text 3. Among these sons, Prishadra, following the order of his spiritual master, was engaged as a protector of cows. He would stand all night with a sword to give the cows protection. Purport. One who becomes Virasana takes the vow to stand all night with a sword to give protection to the cows. Because Prishadra was engaged in this way, it is to be understood that he had no dynasty. We can further understand from this vow accepted by Prishadra how essential it is to protect the cows. Some son of a Kshatriya would take this vow to protect the cows from ferocious animals, even at night. What then is to be said of sending cows to slaughterhouses? This is the most sinful activity in human society. Again, among these sons, Prishadra, following the order of his spiritual master, was engaged as a protector of cows. He would stand all night with a sword to give the cows protection. Om Gyanachimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You may wonder about these first 2 chapters of the 9th canto. What is their relevance? Chapter 1 began with Parikshit Maharaj wanting to know all about the Manus and the kings during their time. He was very eager to hear, and he requested to hear about it in detail. And what was Shukadeva Goswami's response? Yes, I'll explain it to you, but bear in mind that even in 100 years, I couldn't get to the bottom of it all. I couldn't recite the entire history. Parikshit Maharaj said, tell me about the past Manus and kings. Tell me about the present. And tell me about the future ones. Why? What's so important about all this? perhaps we should immediately skip over these chapters. But in the previous chapter, chapter 1 of the 9th canto, we find out about Ishanukata, the kata that talks about those who are following the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything in relation to the Supreme Lord is spiritual and important. Otherwise, Pritchard Maharaj would have no business asking about these things. In these chapters, you're learning about great personalities far beyond the capacity of human beings today. It's very important for us to be humiliated in that way, because it's amazing that somehow or other we think that humanity has made great progress. We're totally enamored by IT, and we think it's brought so many conveniences. But Srila Prabhupada would always point out, how can there be progress when human beings are not sufficiently employed, not appropriately employed, or not even employed at all because of technology? How is it that technology is your friend if human beings are unengaged? Not only unengaged, but if those who are engaged inappropriately, not according to their propensity. So time and time again, during Srila Prabhupada's time with us, he would refer to human society as chaotic. Now, do you really consider, here you are living in the lucky country, do you consider it chaotic? So many of you from abroad have said the reason why you tolerate being here is because of the infrastructure, meaning no chaos like perhaps some other places where you have to have signs saying lane driving. But what we're actually living in is chaos because human beings are not engaged according to their propensity. Chaturvarnamayastristam guna karma vibhagasha. Krishna says he personally has made a system for ordering material affairs, and we pay that system no mind. This is chaos. Just take whatever engagement, employment you can based on the money. Sometimes a little bit according to our interest or what we speculate is our propensity. But everything is so mixed up, so turbulent. The only thing that's the bottom line is the money. Whereas in a real human society, the bottom line is doing things for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that everyone, according to their appropriate work, can become perfect. Not just the brahmanas, not just the head of the social body, although we need some brahmanas. It's not that only they can attain the perfection of life. Krishna is very firm and strong on the point that everyone, by doing their respective occupational propensity, can attain perfection. But we don't have such a system. And therefore, the situation is deemed as chaotic in spite of the IT advancement, the AI, in spite of all the so-called conveniences. You can see that internally, people are breaking down more and more. They can't handle the stress. They can't handle the anxiety. They can't handle the depression, the uncertainty, the meaninglessness of life lived materially. Can't handle it without intoxication, sensuality, and causing problems for other human beings. You see, the way the illusory energy works is that if you don't have a strong bodily identification, social scientists explain this, that a strong bodily identification, what the Shastra calls upadi, material designation. Without that, the materialists say, you'll be you won't have a strong reason for existence. You won't have a sense of self-worth. You need a material designation that you feel so strongly about, that you identify with so strongly. I am of this ethnicity. I am of this nation. I am of this gender preference. The stronger that gets, the more your false ego expands, or others say, the more your self-esteem improves. Especially in situations when you feel things are out of control. Your life is out of control. Your society is out of control. At those times, it's especially important to have a strong bodily identification so you can be manipulated based on that bodily identification. So you take a false sense of strength from that body identification, from that upadi. I am a this, you are a that. I have my group, we hate your group. Your group is causing all the problems to my group. You're a threat. We are of this group. And in this way, you feel a sense of strength. You feel a reason for being. And you feel that you're part of something bigger and more powerful than you. Our group. We are the thises. And the world continues to descend into such illusion again and again and again. When in doubt, take shelter of your upadi. When in doubt, identify more with the body. Because you have no spiritual knowledge, you don't have the kindergarten understanding of spirituality, the ABCs that you're different from the body, your spirit, soul, you don't have that. So therefore, what else can you do? Something's wrong. Something's missing. What's my ethnicity? What's my gender preference? What's my nationality? And you take false strength, your false ego becomes empowered falsely by such increased body identification. This process is considered so inherent, so essential for human beings that often political scientists say, look, we might as well face it. Body identification, nationalism, ethnocentrism seems to be essential to human life. So we might as well figure out how not to get rid of it, but to utilize it. So the more we can actually find something positive about body identification, the more practical we are, because human beings, that's the way they are. They can't get over it. That's the way they live, by identifying with their body. So let's go with it. Let's go with the flow. Make an advanced society based on increased body identification, because that's the way human beings are. This is how to organize them. But Krishna says no. Krishna has his own plan for organizing human society based on Varna and Ashrama. Without that, we have chaos in spite of living increasingly in a technologically controlled society. Still, there's chaos. If you look at the statistics for psychological problems for the first world countries, Australia, USA, UK, it's horrifying. The amount of depression, the amount of anxiety disorders, the amount of stress problems. The chief health officer in the USA, at least before the current administration, said that the biggest epidemic in the USA is youth mental health. So how can you not understand? This is chaos. So now we are dealing with the point of Prashadra. Pritchett Maharaj has heard about various Manus, And so now you're hearing about Vaivasvata Manu and his dynasty. Vaivasvata Manu is also known as Shraddha. So one of his sons, before the famous Ikshvaku mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, one of his sons was named Prashadra. Now, Prashadra seems to have gotten an unusual order from his guru, which was to engage as protector of cows. And what would he do? He would all night long stand with a sword in his hand to give the cows protection. So you might say, well, this sounds quite strange and odd. I mean, we appreciate that he such care of the cows, but for someone to stand all night with a sword in hand just to protect cows, isn't that going a bit too far? But then we find out from the purport. We can further understand from this vow accepted by Prashadra how essential it is to protect the cows. Some son of a Kshatriya would take this vow to protect the cows from ferocious animals, even at night. What then is to be said of sending cows to slaughterhouses? This is the most sinful activity in human society. So we know whenever we're offering our food, we say, Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmanya Hitaya, Jagat Hitaya, Krishnaya. Krishna is Go Brahmanya Hitaya. He's the protector of the cows and the brahmanas. So you want to analyze if there's true human progress? Where are the brahmanas and where are the cows? That's how you evaluate. Without protecting the brahmana culture, without protecting cows, you have chaos. You don't have an advanced civilization. You have a civilization based on slaughter. So one of the essential purposes of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is cow protection. Now you would say, what can you do to protect cows? None of you have the life circumstances where you can stand up all night with a sword in your hand, guarding against ferocious animals, what, wombats or kangaroos or... You don't have those kind of social circumstances. So what are you going to do? Well, you have to drink milk, yes? How many of you here drink milk or use ghee or have milk products? Raise your hands. Where does it all come from? What kind of cows? Are they protected cows? I know, but milk, ahimsa milk from protected cows is what? Expensive. Just like maintaining your mother or your grandmother is expensive. How many of you send money to your parents or grandparents back in India? Raise your hands. Expensive, isn't it? Would you dare consider a more economical solution of extinguishing your mother and grandmother because it's expensive? How horrible. Yet we will accept milk from slaughterhouse cows because it's what? Cheaper. Just see how our life has become so dependent on what is cheaper and what is more expensive that we lose the vision of what is actually the way a real human society functions. So some places, some temples, they have no access to ahimsa milk. other than importing it from overseas. But what about here in Melbourne? Is that the case? I've heard that you are in the fortunate situation in which there is a supply of ahimsa milk that's more than what the demand is. This is very astonishing. Usually in my travels around the world, we find a situation that where there is ahimsa milk, it's snapped up so quickly. The ahimsa dairy can't keep up with the demand. But then probably I've heard wrong, but I hear that you have the luxury of an excess of ahimsa milk. Why is that excess there? Because everyone is saving what? So again, if you really want to economize, if you really want to be financially thrifty, get rid of your mother and grandmother. Stop sending money to India. So then you say, well, Swami, if you put it like that. Why is it that the financial bottom line so dominates our life that our principles are, you would say, corrupted? So yes, if you can't have that milk, what can be done? But if you have the opportunity and don't take advantage of it, So Prasadra is teaching us by his example the importance of protecting cows. Elsewhere in one purport in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Srila Prabhupada explains that, yes, Krishna is the protector of the cows and brahmanas, but of the two, he's more inclined to the cows, even more than the brahmanas. What do you think about that? So many here want Brahmana initiation for whatever motivation. But what about cows? What about cow protection? Well, milk comes from the shop, right? You don't have to worry. Just pay your money, get the milk. This is Brahminical culture. So we should think deeply about what Prasadra is teaching us. And tomorrow we'll hear that Prasadra inadvertently got himself into some trouble. Not that he intended to do that, but the way of this world is so complicated and intricate that even in spite of our best intentions, fault can happen. Now, in the previous chapter, you heard the complicated story of Sudna. There was a simple desire to have a son by an empowered personality who had no children. So he did all the right things. He arranged for a yajna to bring about a son. But there was a family disagreement he wasn't aware of. His wife didn't want a son. She wanted a daughter. Sometimes these things happen, I'm told. You all know better than I. So during the yajna, when it came time for the priest to say the mantra to get a son, she whispered into the priest's ear, "Make it a daughter." These intrigues go on at home sometimes. And so the priest changed the mantra slightly, just changing the accent, so that a daughter would come about instead of a son. So when the daughter was born, the father was astonished. Like, what happened? Have the demigods betrayed us? We did the yajna correctly. What happened? Why do we have a daughter? And then he was informed about what his wife had done. So he was happy at first because he had no children. I've got a daughter, okay. I had nothing before. But that temporary tranquility soon wore off. Where's the son? Where's the son? He's Manu. He needs sons to perpetuate the dynasty for leading mankind, humanity. So he got the benediction that the daughter would transform into a son. Okay, problem solved, right? But that son, Sudna, ran into some complications. He was touring the forest with some of his fellows, and unknowingly they went into a part of the forest which was the private neighborhood of Lord Shiva and Uma. And they stumbled upon Lord Shiva having an intimate moment with his consort. Of course, Lord Shiva is no ordinary person, nor is his consort. So they quickly reversed direction. They quickly left that section of the forest. They didn't want to disturb Lord Shiva and his wife. They didn't mean to stumble onto such a situation, so they immediately reversed and left. But as they were leaving, they noticed their horses all became, what do you call a female horse, a mare? The horses all became mares and the men all became women. What had happened? To satisfy his wife, Lord Shiva had made a special spell on that section of the forest that anyone who came there would transform into a woman. So Sudna was now a woman. Now this was not the best of news for the kingdom. These days we'd say, no problem. I've been told that the CEOs of the biggest, of all the banks, someone told me the CEOs of all the banks in Australia are women. Yes, Bhakta has certified. Most of them. But Bhagavatam is presenting a different culture at a different time. And so the citizens were not very satisfied with the situation. Nor was Sudumna's father, because Sudumna's father wanted to head to the forest to renounce as a vanaprastha. But he's got no son. So he got the benediction. That was a compromise, preserving Lord Shiva's spell that he cast on the situation, as well as making it so that Sudumna could rule the kingdom. So what was the solution? You see, how to handle opposing statements in the Shastra, opposing statements by authoritative personalities. This is discussed by Rupa Goswami in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. If you want to know the details of all the incarnations, you take advantage of the BBT edition of Laghu Bhagavatamrita. I hope you have it in your temple gift shop. It explains not only the details of the incarnations, but also the mystery of why and how Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. So Rupa Goswami and Baladev Vidyabhushan elaborates in his commentary that when you hear two statements from Shastra or authoritative personalities that seem to clash, contradict each other, you don't accept one and discard the other. You harmonize both of them. You reconcile the situation by accepting both. So this is what happened with Sudna. Lord Shiva had said to his wife, he assured his wife, if anyone stumbles upon this neck of the forest, our private abode, and someone comes at the wrong time, they'll turn into women. So he satisfied his wife in that way. But the citizens needed a successor to Manu. Manu wanted to leave a dynasty of rulers. And so what could be done? The solution was devised that with the help of Vashishta, the priest, that 1 month Sudna would become a man and the next month a woman. This section of Bhagavatam explains what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. You change bodies like you change clothes. So Sudna, 1 month was a man, the next month a woman. Evidently, according to the Shastra, this was not very satisfying to the citizens. But what could be done? And then finally, Sudna leaves for the forest, for Vanaprastha, and that leaves no heir to the throne. Again, Manu's got no children, he's got no sons. So, somehow or other, he's able, as we heard in text 2. Then, because of this desire for sons, the Manu known as Shraddha-deva worshiped the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, the Lord of the demigods. Thus he got 10 sons, exactly like himself. Among them all, Ikshvaku was the oldest. And that's the Ikshvaku mentioned at the beginning of the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So when you think about it, what is so odd about Sudna having one gender, then another gender? It's all external. Nevertheless, for the sake of ruling as a Manu, something else was required. So Shraddha-deva, Vaivashvata, another name, has 10 sons. Exactly like himself means they were qualified. And Prashadra was one of them. But Prashadra had this unusual, it would seem, portfolio of standing all night guarding cows. Therefore, Prashadra had no lineage coming from him, which is also not the usual, but we're informed that this is a particular type of vow. One who becomes Virasana takes the vow to stand all night with a sword to give protection to the cows. So let us think how dear the cows are to Krishna. We call him Gopal, Govinda. And we've heard that slaughtering cows is the most sinful activity in human society. Actually, cow protection doesn't simply mean maintain the cows. Just like having a family doesn't simply mean maintaining the children. What does a family actually mean? in terms of the responsibility and activities of the mother and father. They want the children to be what? Happy. So similarly, the Acharyas explain that cow protection doesn't simply mean maintenance, it means keep and make the cows happy. Well, if we can't make them happy, we at least can protect them. And protecting cows means where you are so fortunate to have access to milk from protected cows, you snap it up. Otherwise, for financial consideration, we can make a lot of changes in our life. As we said, you get rid of your parents, your grandparents, you don't have to support them. So how much dominated we want to be by financial concerns, so much so that we lose sight of what is real human society and our responsibility to live in a real human society. We may not be able to influence others, but certainly we can for ourselves do the right thing. Go Brahmanya Hitayacha. Krishna is the protector of the cows and the brahmanas. And of the two, he's more inclined to the cows, even more than to the brahmanas. So tomorrow we'll hear about a mistake, unintentional mistake that Prasadra made. It happens. The way of this world is such that intricacies, unexpected complications happen. We become bewildered. Why is this happening to me? Why did this situation come upon me? Sometimes we become angry at Krishna. How could you do this to me? Or how could you let this happen to me? I'm your faithful servant. We forget that we were determined to come to the material world and take a material body. And having a material body, being in the material world, means problems, material problems. So we can't blame Krishna for the material body and the material world going its way. It's the way things are. And Krishna himself warns us in Bhagavad Gita, Dukkalayam Shashvatam. Material existence is temporary, full of temporariness and misery. Anityam, asukam, lokam. This planet is not the place for happiness. But we have another vision in our mind, right? We're going to make for success, we're going to make for happiness and fulfillment in a place that can at best give you mixed happiness and distress. But we're so desperate, right? The happiness and distress may be mixed. I'll take it anyway. Better mixed happiness and distress than no happiness at all. So in this way, we sign up for a life of problems. Give me the mixed happiness and distress. Give me the sweet rice mixed with sand. I accept. I'm pragmatic. I'm practical. You can't get pure sweet rice. So give me that sweet rice that's mixed with sand. That's better than just drinking sand. Give me the sweet rice mixed with sand. At least in between crunching on the grains of sand, I can taste a little of the sweet rice. Is that the proper objective of our life? No, Krishna is saying, go beyond this happiness, distress, and mixed happiness and distress. We have to know the property values in our particular neighborhood. So many of you are concerned with property values. You have your investment properties. It's a big thing now in Australia that For the average Australian, it's very difficult to be able to rent a house. So you're concerned about what's the value of your home, what's the value of the neighborhood you live in. But what about being concerned about the property values of the Earth planet? This is the middle planetary system. It means mixed happiness and distress. It's always going to be like that. As compared to the lower planetary system where there's practically all distress, and the upper planetary system where there is practically all material happiness. So in the middle planetary system, in this neighborhood of the middle planetary system, you should know what you expect. You should know what to expect. There'll be happiness and distress all mixed together in a most frustrating way. Because you think, just let me have the sweet rice without the sand. I'll work harder. I'll change this. I'll change that. And then I'll be happy. So what's going to happen to Prasadra is eye-opening in that it was not his intent to make such a mistake, to kill a cow. It was all a mistake. And because he was implicated in with a family priest who was angry and not very sympathetic. Prasadra, you might say, got a raw deal. But we'll find out tomorrow how he transcended the whole situation. Rather than being angry at his priest, being angry at the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he used the whole situation to become an advanced devotee and go back to Godhead. So this Prasadra can teach us a lot about cow protection and also about tolerating the intricacies of material existence and attaining the perfection of life. So are there any questions? Yes, Bhakta Prabhu, please give us an enlightening comment.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Your point that you mentioned about ahimsa milk, and here in Melbourne...
I didn't mean to say that.
You said it. And that, you know, there's ample for the devotees here in Melbourne. That's actually factually not so. They can only produce a certain amount. So wonderful if you can get it, and it is a financial difference. There's 2 points to my question. The first one is, if there is not enough, as Prabhupada stated that milk is a very important part of a devotee's diet, what should the devotee do if they can't access ahimsa milk? Because if you think about it, there is thousands of devotees here in Melbourne. The farm that produces that milk at the moment would not be able to fully satisfy. The second thing is that I wanted your opinion on is the fact that these ahimsa farms have a difficulty with the bulls. There's a 50-50 chance that it could be a cow or a bull. And so they use genetic modification to actually have only female cows most of the time. Do you see that as a Vedic thing? And how would you comment on those 2 points, please?
We have to put our intelligence to work on such a situation, rather than just accept it that that's the way it is and that's the way it always has to be. It requires management. It's not easy. I know at Gita Nagari, Prabhupada told them, keep the milk supply, keep the herd increasing, and the devotees rightfully pointed out to him, more herd means more land. Prabhupada gave such a response we would call it baffling. then just buy more land. In other words, he's saying it's a challenge that you can't duck. You have to figure something out with your management. So you say that here in Melbourne you don't have enough ahimsa milk. Well, I stand corrected to hear that there's not enough supply to meet the demand. In Sydney, there's talk about importing ghee from India, from certified ahimsa places. They're trying to they're thinking how to devise workarounds. But if we just say we're permanently defeated, we can't make any progress forward. So whether there is adequate supply or not adequate supply, let's take on board the desire of the Founder-Acharya that devotees and temples have ahimsa milk. Right. That's all I'm saying. So I'm glad to hear, in one sense, that the supply of ahimsa milk is all gobbled up. Others have told me differently, but whatever. But we can't abandon the whole mission, the whole quest. Somehow or other we have to figure things out. Otherwise we just, the bulls, what to do about that, and we can't supply everyone who wants. But if we put our intelligence to work, we can come up with some solution. We're duty-bound to come to a solution because Krishna likes the cows more than the brahmanas. So that would be my point. That would be my answer. It's a situation that has to be managed. It's a challenge, without a doubt. Did that answer both of your questions? Or?
Well, the point about the artificial insemination of a cow also to produce just cows, is that also according to Vedic culture?
No.
So what do we do? That's what's happening at the moment.
So we need to accept a managemental priority. That's what Prabhupada asked. He said he wanted... Devotees rightfully point out that Prabhupada drank milk from slaughtered cows. That's true. But at the same time, he said, we should have farms that provide our temples and devotees with milk. It's tough.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to say it's difficult, without a doubt. Yes.
We're lucky, extremely fortunate to have options. And it's a huge headache for those who are producing the mother dairy milk. So we should offer our obeisances to those devotees every time we see them, because it's not easy to do what they're doing. It's expensive, effectively. And is a cause of great anxiety, I know, for the devotees who are doing it. And it's why we don't do it as a institution. You know, we have a farm, but the farm is, as you and I have discussed, it's a black hole. You could just keep pouring money into it and more money, and even then not get enough milk. So what is being done at the moment, despite its faults, it's really interesting because, almost everything you do, Krishna says it, it's all covered by some sort of fault. But the fact that we can get milk readily supplied without the slaughter of animals is unique on the planet, actually, when you think about it.
Yes.
So to have, and we do it too. We to inseminate the cows, we purchase the semen from a supplier that we know will give us ghee give us the greatest chance of having a heifer as opposed to a bobby calf. But sometimes we get bobby calves too, so they're treated as affectionately as the heifers. It's just that they're less productive. But it's kind of like, what do you do? We don't have a lot of choices, but we're actually so fortunate. You can go down to the IGA, or you can go up into the shop, and in the kitchen we have a himsa of milk that we can do the milk sweets and, the offerings to Krishna.
Yes, Prasadra's attitude and activity teaches us that somehow or other we try to do the best we can and we don't give up the quest. Just like about Varnashram Dharma. Prabhupada was very insistent about that. He said all our temples should be Varnashram colleges for training the Varnas. Whoo! But these things we just can't push aside. That's my point. We may not be there, but at least we should think how to do the best we can to get there. May not be able to do it overnight. Aniruddha Prabhu.
In the preface to the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada refers to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness as this great society. Huh? And his reason for publishing the Bhagavad Gita as it is with the full commentary was his desire. When it was first published, it was an abridged version. But Prabhupada refers to, and this is in 1971, right? But it's interesting, in this day and age, not everybody looks at ISKCON with the same vision that Srila Prabhupada had. And there's this tendency to criticise and to find fault. Whereas Prabhupada probably in 1971 had a fair idea of what was going on in ISKCON, yet he still referred to it as the Great Society. So, why do you think, or what are your thoughts on, this vision of the Great Society or the society full of faults?
It's a miracle that there is a global society for engaging human beings in devotional service, especially in chanting Hare Krishna. That's amazing. In the dense darkness of Kali Yuga, we have this global opportunity to engage in Krishna's service. That is miraculous. Here in Melbourne Temple, you have so many wonderful activities going on. Leading this part of the world in book distribution. Vibrant, educated community of devotees. That is a great society. Just a few days ago, I was speaking at Melbourne University to an audience of 350, all very eager to hear. That is the activity of a great society. All so eager to hear, asking question after question, and mostly not from Bharat. It's often said, preaching to the Bharatiyas is like taking candy from a baby. But it's those others that are the real problems. But what was the percentage of Bharatiyas? 10% of 350 were Bharatiyas. So there's an appetite. People are concerned what's happening to the world, what's happening to the environment. Do we have any real leaders of our nations? They're concerned. So we need these points by Srila Prabhupada to prod us into action. What then is to be said of sending cows to slaughterhouses? This is the most sinful activity in human society. We need such statements. Otherwise, we'll just take it easy and, hey, the situation is what it is. It can't be changed at all, so no point in thinking about it. No point in applying our intelligence and managemental skills. It is what it is. Let's move on to something else. That's our tendency. You would agree that's our tendency? So let's be challenged. Let's not be afraid to be challenged. And yes, do the best we can while trying to do better simultaneously. So I hope that you'll put pressure on the Ahimsa farm you have in your area to either do its best to produce, to fulfill the demand, or bring in ghee from India, from Ahimsa farms. Some devotees are investigating that. Something, some step forward, rather than just be stymied. Oh, impossible. And then Srila Prabhupada ki jai. But overlook all the things he said that are difficult. Anything else? How is the microphone going to get way over to this Mataji?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the beautiful class. Maharaj, I have a question. What to say if people say all these shastras are just created by people to discipline the people?
Can someone repeat? I wish the humans would be disciplined. All right, if accepting what you say, then let's see the disciplined human beings. We don't see it.
They say because created by people, they don't want to follow the shastras.
What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Yashastra vidim utsrija vartate kama karata. You reject the shastra, it's not simply you don't get the perfection of life, you don't get happiness. And that's what you see happening in the world today. Where is the happiness? Our theme for the program Wednesday at Melbourne University was the quest for happiness. Because we know that's what people are concerned about. Where's my happiness? I have this technology, that technology, this government, that government. Where's my happiness? This relationship, that relationship, where's my happiness? They don't know what happiness is or how to get it. More and more, they're starting to admit that. I don't know what happiness is. So I started off the program by reciting the different notions people have of happiness and the different scientific notions of what is happiness, none of which satisfies anyone. But they don't know anything better. Anything else?
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
All right, no other questions? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.